All right, let's jump right in. We're going to tackle a really personal and, let's be honest, pretty frightening question today. What do you do when someone you love just stops eating? Now, this is a guide for caregivers, for sure, but really it's for any of us who want to get a handle on the science behind, our most basic daily routines. She wasn't starving. She wasn't sick. She just forgot to eat. I mean, that one sentence just cuts right to the heart of it, doesn't it? The confusion, the fear. It's a situation so many families face, and it just doesn't make any sense. You see the food is there, the person you love is right there, totally capable, but that simple, fundamental act of eating, it's like it just vanishes from their day. And of course, this is the first question we all ask, right? Our minds they leap to the scariest conclusions. Dementia, Alzheimer's. You start thinking this is it, a sign that things are going downhill and fast. But what if the answer isn't just about memory? What if it's about something else entirely? Something we can actually do something about? Okay, to really get a handle on this, let's talk about a real-life story. Let me introduce you to Mrs. L. She's a retired teacher, and for her whole life, she's been fiercely independent. You know the type. Her entire life was built on these solid routines. But then, all of a sudden, one of the most fundamental parts of that routine just started to fall apart. So, you have everyone looking at the exact same problem but seeing totally different things. Her daughter, she sees sadness. She thinks it's depression. Her doctor, well, he suspects a cognitive issue, maybe memory loss. But then a behavior analyst comes in and sees something else entirely. They don't just look at Mrs. L, they look at her environment, and what they see is a missing piece, a broken link in a chain of habits. And that tiny shift in perspective, it's everything. So to really understand what that behavior analyst was seeing, we have to pull back the curtain a little bit on some behavioral science. There's this core concept, it's called the behavioral loop. And honestly, it's like the invisible engine that drives almost everything we do on autopilot. From brushing our teeth to firing up the coffee maker in the morning. Now, here's the really important part. A habit isn't just one thing. It's not a single action. It's a whole three-part sequence. And for our aging parents or loved ones, if just one little piece of that sequence breaks down, a routine they've had for like 80 years can just stop. Cold. Okay, so let's break down those 3 steps. First up, you've got the antecedent. It's kind of a fancy word, but all it means is the cue or the trigger. It could be the clock hitting noon, or maybe it's the smell of your neighbor's barbecue. That cue, whatever it is, triggers the second step, the behavior. So you actually go and make and eat your food. And that leads to step 3, the consequence. Feeling full and satisfied. The key here is that if that first step, that initial cue, goes missing, the whole chain just collapses. Okay, so how can you actually spot this happening with your own family? I mean, it's not always going to be some big, dramatic moment of them refusing food. A lot of the time, the signs that this behavioral loop is breaking down are way more subtle. They're these little, practical things that you can actually see if you know what to look for. I wonder if any of this sounds familiar to you. You open the fridge, and it's full of good food, but no meals are ever actually made. Or maybe your mom, who has loved chocolate ice cream her whole life, suddenly just isn't interested. These aren't just random little things happening. Think of them like clues, like data points, all suggesting that the underlying system that supports the habit of eating is starting to break down. And this brings us to such a critical shift in thinking. Our gut reaction, our deepest fear, is that this has to be irreversible memory loss. But the behavioral reality, it offers a totally different and honestly, a much more hopeful idea. What if the problem isn't something broken inside their head, but something missing in the world around them? What if the cues that used to be there are just gone? Okay, so if the problem is a missing cue, then the next logical question is, how do we fix it? Well, this is where a science called applied behavior analysis, or ABA for short, comes into play. Now, you might have heard of ABA in other contexts, but it's an incredibly powerful tool for rebuilding these kinds of essential routines, no matter how old you are. And the goal of ABA here is just so empowering. It's not about trying to fix a person. It's about fixing their environment. It's about using science to put back the structure they need to be independent, to be safe, and to live with dignity. It's a huge difference. And here's the actual toolkit. And look, these are super practical, totally doable strategies. Prompting? That could be as simple as an alarm on an Alexa. Environmental engineering? Sounds fancy, but it just means making small tweaks, like putting a bowl of fruit out on the counter instead of hidden away in a drawer. We're not talking about complicated medical stuff here. These are simple but really powerful adjustments to everyday life. All right, let's circle back to Mrs. L's story because this is where we get to see how all this works in the real world. This is the moment the theory becomes a real, practical solution that literally changed her life. Just look at how beautifully simple these fixes are. Her daughter put a little whiteboard on the fridge with the daily meals listed out. Boom, a constant visual cue. She started keeping ready-to-eat snacks in a clear container right there on the counter, so you don't even have to think about looking for food. And yeah, she used an Alexa to give a friendly reminder at noon that it's lunchtime. It's just a simple voice that replaces that internal clock that maybe isn't quite as reliable as it used to be. And here it is. This is the kicker. Within 1 week, Mrs. L was eating regularly again. It's so important to get this. Her memory didn't magically improve. Her environment did. The world around her was just slightly re-engineered to support her, to make eating the easy, obvious choice again. So what's the big takeaway here? What's the one thing we should all really absorb from this story? It's all about changing our perspective, changing the very words we use to describe the problem. Think about this phrase, a loss of rhythm. Isn't that so much better, so much more accurate, and frankly, so much less terrifying than a loss of memory? Our whole lives are built on these daily and weekly rhythms. And as we get older, yeah, those rhythms can get a little out of sync. But the amazing news is that with the right tools, those rhythms can absolutely be rebuilt, one little cue at a time. And that is just such a hopeful and empowering way to think about this, isn't it? It completely reframes aging. It's not this inevitable, steady decline. It's just a new chapter, one that might require a different set of tools and a little more support. It just goes to show that with a little bit of science, a little bit of clever thinking, we can help the people we love hold on to their independence for so much longer. It's not magic, it's just a nudge from science.